Welcome to our new show, Green Gardens to Chocolate, the real comfort food. I'm Joy Binah.
Hi, I'm Rita Rivera, and together Joy and I are going to take you along with us as we explore the importance of eating well, of reclaiming our health and vitality, and also to understand how the choices we make every day impact the health and vitality of our planet. On our show, we are going to be presenting you with delicious, scrumptious recipes that you'll be able to try at home. We will look at sustainability with really engaging interviews, stories with notables in our community, authors, healthcare practitioners, and even local entrepreneurs. So come along with us as we do these wonderful on-site visits and experience the richness and diversity in our community, learn about nutrition along the way, and understanding how delicious, nutritious food can be the go-to place for our comfort food. Joy is about to interview Cynthia Sandberg on this fabulous farm.
My journey started several years ago when my daughter came back from Europe. She was WWOOFing. WWOOFing is Worldwide Organization for Organic Farms, and it enables people to travel very economically. So she spent a year traveling and working on organic farms, and she came back, and one day she said to me, "You know, Mom, you really should be growing your own food." So after I heard that, I had been thinking about it for quite some time, but that expression on her face was definitely the clincher, and I decided to bite the bullet. And I have to say, I went into it with quite a bit of reticence. Being a city girl from Boston, I had zero confidence to grow my own food. I did know that the first thing one does is get compost. So I ordered a load of compost, and the gentleman's name I remember was Otis. And when it came, we struck up a conversation, and I let him know that I was feeling very incompetent to the task at hand, and he suggested Love Apple Farm. I'd not heard of it, so that night I went online, and I was so thrilled to find out that what was offered there was everything I needed to know. So soon I became a frequent flyer at Love Apple Farm. I started with a spring garden class, then I took a tomato growing class, I've taken an herb growing class, a winter garden class, a beekeeping class, a chicken keeping class, you name it, I was there. I so loved the farm. I so appreciated Cynthia Sandberg's method of teaching, and I just loved being in that space. And she definitely inspired an incredible love of getting my hands in the dirt. You know, I've worn many hats in my life, but I would say that the gardening hat is definitely one of my most favorites.
Cynthia Sandberg, farmer and proprietor of Love Apple Farms. Love Apple Farms hosts 100 classes each year on the farm. Both gardening and cooking are featured. And in addition to running the daily operations of Love Apple Farms, Sandberg is widely sought after as a speaker on various horticulture and homesteading topics. She has been on the Martha Stewart Show, South Korean television, Coastal Gardener, and In Wine Country. She's appeared in Sunset Magazine, Gourmet Magazine, Bon Appetit, Cook Inc., and GQ Magazine. And now, Joy Binah interviews Cynthia Sandberg.
So excited to have you with us.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Joy.
Yeah. So I know that your background was in law. And as a practicing attorney, how did you get from there to your full-time passion as a gardener?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know sometimes. Sometimes I think, wow, how did this transition happen? I was a practicing attorney, and I put in a flower garden in the backyard of my house in Capitola. And everything died after about 3 months, and I did not like that. I thought, why aren't things thriving? So I took a local horticulture class at community college, Cabrillo Community College, and I found out that I had planted all annuals and they just naturally die at the end of the season. But the thing that was interesting was I got hooked on plants during that class, and I never looked back. And this is now, it's become my profession, to propagate plants and sell plants and grow plants and teach people how to do that. So it's been an interesting transition, but a welcomed one.
Tell us about this particular farm. It has its own really unique history, I know.
Well, Love Apple Farms, I started in Ben Lomond, and I named it Love Apple because I fell in love with tomatoes. And an old European word for tomatoes is love apple. And I thought, well, since I'm a tomato farmer and a lover of great tomatoes, then I'm going to name my farm Love Apple. And then we moved to this property, which was 21 acres, and I still kept the name Love Apple Farms, and made my new home here and put gardening boxes on the terraces that the Smothers brothers had created 40 years ago. They had notched in some terraces into the side of the mountain and were growing wine grapes here and had a wine tasting room. They still make wine, as far as I know, but we took it over 5 years ago, put in our boxes, and never looked back. So we expanded our teaching roster to include cooking classes, and now we do 100 cooking and gardening classes at the farm every year.
Oh my gosh. So I know that tomatoes are your greatest love, your greatest love.
Yeah.
And tell us how you started selling them. How did it become such an integral part of your farm?
That was an accident as well. One year I was starting my new garden in Ben Lomond, which is where I started. I was, at that point, had quit my job as an attorney to be a stay-at-home mom to my young son. And I put in a vegetable garden and loved it. And then the second year, I decided I was going to grow 10 varieties of tomatoes. And now I grow 100 varieties, but back then 10 seemed like a massive number. I bought 10 seed packets, germinated them, had really good luck germinating them, because I'd gone through the horticulture program at Cabrillo and had learned a lot of good techniques. So I ended up having about 300 tomato plants that first year, but I couldn't, my intention was only to grow 10 plants, one of each variety of seed packets that I bought. So I thought, dang, I got 290 extra tomato seedlings. What am I going to do with these? I wanted them to fulfill their tomato destiny. So I lived on a busy road. I ended up putting a sign at the end of my driveway. And I had the tomatoes on a little stand, one little table with the sign said, tomatoes $1 a piece. I had an honor jar there. Where people could put the money in, unscrew it, take out, change if they needed. Because I was busy. I'm working in the garden. I can't be up there, sitting at the table. And at the end of the weekend, all the tomato plants were gone, and I thought, wow, this is kind of fun. Maybe I can get some seed money, literally, every year by selling tomato plants. And now my tomato plant sale has evolved and grown, and we do 100 varieties a year. This year we're actually even doing peppers and eggplants for the first time, and some basil starts. But we even have a off-site location that we sell the tomato plants, and we welcome people from all over the Bay Area. We give them gardening tips and tricks when they're there. And it's a big party, and it's fun. That starts at the end of the month, March 28th.
And where is that?
That's at Ivy's Porch in Scotts Valley. Which is about 5 minutes away from the farm, so people could come visit the farm, go to the plant sale, vice versa. But it's been a fabulous evolution, meeting all of these gardeners and wannabe gardeners, because they give me information that I didn't have, and then I impart information to them that they didn't know. And we both grow at the same time. We both grow in our learning and our love of plants and healthy eating and vegetables.
So talking about healthy eating, can you tell me what kind of role a farm like this plays in people maintaining a healthy lifestyle around food?
I think that what we can do is inspire and teach people. When I used to have a tomato fruit stand at the old farm, I'd put all these varieties of tomatoes on there, and I remember I was out there one day fussing over the signs and putting the fruit on the table, the tomatoes. And I had a gal come in, had never seen her before, because my farm was on the honor system. My farm stand was on the honor system. She comes in and she says, I want to thank you. And I thought, wow, I don't even know you. Why are you thanking me? And she goes, you inspired me to eat more healthily. And I said, how? she hands me a picture, and it's a picture of what she used to look like. And she says, "You inspired me to lose 100 pounds.
Oh my God.
And I said, "Holy cow, how did I do that?" She says, "Coming to your fruit stand." I didn't realize that tomatoes were such a wonderful thing to eat. I had no idea. I buy the supermarket tomatoes, they taste kind of blah. Started coming to Love Apple Farm's fruit stand, and I got the most wonderful tomatoes, homegrown tomatoes. And that inspired me to eat more healthily, and I lost 100 pounds. And I said, "That's fabulous, love it." I brought tears to my eyes when I was talking to this gal. I don't know her name, still don't know her name, but I think that the inspiration of having an on-farm fruit stand, vegetable stand, or our educational component, I think people get inspired even when you're at home growing your own garden. Here's the mom or the dad or the aunt or the uncle, grandpa outside fussing with the vegetable garden. I think as people come to the house and see the person in the garden working, other people who may not actually like to eat vegetables come out and start going, "Well, this is cool. What are you growing?" Pull a carrot out of the ground, and they realize how delicious it is right from the soil. Take a cherry tomato off the vine. It can spark somebody's lifelong love of eating vegetables and growing their own food. So I think that that's a great transition for folks to make, and an inspiration for their own community and their own family.
Yes, absolutely. And when we eat directly from the garden, the nutritional profile is off the charts.
Yes.
Whereas when we buy food from the grocery store, even if it's organic, it doesn't matter, because a lot of that has been trucked in and it's been sitting on that shelf, and you're probably not going to eat it that very day. And by the time you get to it, the nutritional profile really has plummeted.
Yeah, there's nothing like fresh, not only for nutrition, but for flavor as well.
Yes,
and for the
definitely.
pride of growing.
Yes.
You spend 3 months growing a carrot, you're going to want to eat that carrot,
That's right.
and you're want your family to eat it with you.
That's right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Well, talking about pride, I know that this gorgeous farm also grows for one of the coolest restaurants around. Can you tell us about that restaurant and your relationship with it?
Yeah, it's called Manresa Restaurant. It's in Los Gatos. It's one of the best restaurants around. That's just not me saying that. That's on a list of a lot of other people. They've gotten accolades worldwide and nationwide, and Chef David Kinch approached me. I guess it's been almost 10 years now. This will be the 10th summer that we will be growing exclusively for Manresa Restaurant. We started supplying him tomatoes one year. I think that was in 2005. And then following spring, he asked if I could be his personal farmer and dedicate all of my growing space just to Manresa. And I said, "Sure, come on over, chef, to the farm and we'll talk about it." So he came over on a rainy February, and we sat down with all sorts of seed catalogs and started thinking about what he wanted me to grow and how much he wanted. And we crafted a deal, and neither one of us has looked back since. So it's been a transition and a godsend to the farm. As you know, Joy, most family farms are always struggling financially. Yes. So the fact that I've had basically this partnership and sponsorship by the restaurant has helped greatly in me being able to carry on this, what I consider good work.
Yes. So farming has everything to do with seasons. And I wonder if you could share with us, now that it's March, we're going into spring, what do you have growing here?
Well, every year we typically grow about 100 different tomatoes for the restaurant. And right now we're starting some of our tomato seedlings in the greenhouse. Peppers, eggplants, all of those are seeds that have been started last month, and we're potting them up now. We're in anticipation of putting them in the garden in mid-April, so in about a month or so we'll put them in the garden. Beans, peas, all different kinds of squashes, cucumbers, melons, all sorts of root vegetables we grow. We grow root veg year-round, carrots, turnips, radishes. We grow those year-round. Lettuces and spinaches that get kind of burnt up in the summer heat, we only grow that in the off-season, in the late fall, winter, and early spring. We grow kale year-round. when David Kinch and I first sat down to figure out what we were going to grow together, I said, what about kale? And he said, no, Cynthia, kale is cow food. And he goes, I don't like kale. And I thought, well, gosh, I love kale, especially red Russian kale, which is, when it's young, so tender and flavorful. So I put in a test patch without him knowing it in the side part of my garden. And when the red Russian kale was about 3-4 inches long, I took him over there. And it's a gorgeous leaf, for one thing. And I grabbed one and I gave it to him to taste. And he goes, you know what? Kale is no longer cow food. We want that on the menu. So ever since then, we've been growing kale for him. And we've even expanded to Toscano kale. But in the winter, we grow all sorts of brassicas and root veg and cabbages and cauliflower, broccoli, all sorts of fava beans in the wintertime, and all sorts of sprouts, too. You see here in the greenhouse, we have a bunch of sprout trays, and the trays go right to the restaurant as well. And they put it in a sunny window, and the chefs cut from it, clip, and use it as garnishes.
Fabulous. Yeah.
We do edible flowers for them as well, the nasturtiums. Anything that's flowering that is also edible, we'll send to the restaurant. So the pea flowers, before they turn into peas, the flower is edible, wonderful, it tastes like a pea. Yes. The bean flowers are edible, wonderful, they taste like beans. So we check to make sure that it's edible and not bad for humans to eat. And once we ascertain that it's fine, we'll taste it. And sometimes they taste so good that he can create a dish just around the flour. Yes. And that's been transformative for his cooking as well as for our growing. I'm always trying to find some interesting flour that's edible, palatable, wonderful, that he can put on his menu.
Yes, I know he favors particular tomatoes as well that he creates dishes around.
Yeah, I've introduced him to several varieties of tomatoes that he adores, but I have to grow new tomato varieties every year, Joy, as do you, I know. Yeah. That's the fun of gardening, is to try something new, not just growing a big red tomato. I want a yellow one, a white one, a bicolor, a striped one, a purple, a black one, an orange one. So I've offered him every year new varieties, and sometimes he loves them, sometimes he doesn't. We just work through what he really loves, and the next year I'll grow more of them. So he's fallen in love with not just the red tomatoes, but green when ripe tomatoes. I have one that I adore called Delano green, a black tomato that he loves. We must grow 20 plants of Paul Robeson every year for him. A red ox heart shape, which is as crazy as that I usually get with a red tomato, because I don't generally like red tomatoes, but if it's in a heart shape, I do, and that's German red strawberry, so we grow that every year for him. When I first showed David Kinch the German red strawberry tomato, he grabbed it and he held it in his hand and he goes, "This is like titanium, it's so heavy." And I said, "That's because an ox heart tomato is almost pure meat." And he goes, "Okay, Cynthia, give me more of these." And I go, "All right, chef, you got it."
So, Cynthia, it's been an honor and a privilege to be here with you. And as a frequent flyer of your classes, you have inspired me to take up a hobby that is so near and dear to my heart, and for that I will always be grateful.
Thank you, Joy.
I really, really will.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks.
Milk even just starts to come out right then, but then you squeeze here. So that's basically all you're gonna do.
Because if there's a big indentation there, that's not going to come back to
Keep going, and we're going to get up to between 100 and 105.
So today I am going to show you a very simple and easy way to incorporate these beautiful greens into your diet every single day. So there's no reason or no excuse why you're not consuming these beautiful greens. Today on the table we have dinosaur kale, which is one of my favorites, and I'm going to devein the dinosaur kale and then do a chiffonade, which you can use sprinkling on salads and soups or really just about anything, your main entrees. And one of my favorites is bok choy. This is great. I particularly like this in a salad. And we have Russian kale, which is also another really beautiful kale to use, and of course rainbow chard. So I'm going to start with dinosaur kale, and I'm going to show you how I devein the kale. So I turn it on its side, and I take a very sharp knife and I just go along the inside of the stem on both sides, and there you have it. So I've just deveined the kale. And then what I do is I'll cut it in half and just use some very, very gentle strokes on the kale, and we're going to be chopping it into very small, fine pieces, almost like parsley. Just like that. And then from there, we have a beautiful bowl of chopped kale. And here's some delicious lentil soup. And I'm just going to sprinkle some of the kale right on top. You can also do this when the soup is in the pot and you're just about to serve it. Shut off the flame, and you can actually add a big handful of the kale at that time. Or as well, you can just put a garnish of that right on top. You can also take your salad, whatever salad you're having that day for your meal, and take a handful of the chopped kale, and also along with your favorite dressing, you can just mix it all together. So here are two very, very simple ways, both with soup and with salad, that you can add some really delicious raw greens to your diet. And you can do the same thing with the Russian kale. You can do the same thing with the rainbow chard. And as I mentioned, the bok choy is one of my favorites. So you can just take the leaves off and give them a good chop. And you've got multiple ways to use these vegetables in your daily meals.
So because greens are so important, they're phytonutrients and all the enzymes, we're showing you yet another recipe of how to prepare them raw. When you cook your greens, though they can still be delicious and nutritious, the enzymes are destroyed in heat and some of the phytonutrients as well. So whenever we can keep them raw, the better. So here are, this is deveined kale, and I am going to just kind of put it all together, roll it up together, and chiffonade it as Rita did, which is very thinly sliced. You know, chiffonade is a French term, and it means torn rags, and it's kind of like what it looks like a little. And it just takes a moment to slice that kale, and this is dinosaur kale, really nice and thin. I'm going to put it in the bowl. And we're going to squeeze a little bit of lemon. What we're making here is a marinade, and it will work on the kale and soften it, and it will taste as if it's been cooked. It will have broken down the fibers in the kale. So I'm going to give a squeeze of lemon. A splash of olive oil, and if you listen to our fats video, you know why it's so important to have olive oil in a dark bottle and buy small quantities so it will stay nice and fresh. And a little bit of salt. And here's the fun part, because you got to get your hands right in there. And what you're doing is you're massaging the kale, so you're breaking down the fibers. Okay, it doesn't need a lot of work, but you do need to put some pressure. And you know what I do when I pick the kale or the greens from the garden and I want to prepare them this way? I do a whole bunch. And I have it in the refrigerator so they're ready to go. They can be thrown in so many different dishes. And what I have here is a quinoa salad that I made yesterday. And it has some cranberries, some feta cheese, and some green onions. And that's how I served it yesterday. But there's leftover, and I'm going to enjoy it again today. But today I'm going to add some kale and have it taste a little bit different. So I'm going to just pour that whole bowl of kale in there and mix it up. And I have a fabulous cold quinoa dish filled with very nutritious marinated kale. Did you know that the seeds and skin of the tomatoes are most nutritious, providing 50% of the tomato's vitamin C, lycopene, and overall antioxidant value? Unlike most fruits, tomatoes are actually better for you when cooked rather than raw. Though nothing beats the flavor of a delicious, fresh, heirloom tomato, the fact is, the longer you cook them, the more healthful benefits you get. By breaking down the cell walls, the nutrients become more bioavailable, and it changes the lycopene molecule into a form that is also easier to absorb. Cooking the tomatoes 30 minutes can more than double the lycopene content.
We have just completed our first episode on
Green Gardens to Chocolate, the real comfort food.
And we so enjoyed our visit to Love Apple Farms and meeting Cynthia. And our second show
is going to be on the importance of healthy soil. And we're going to take another trip, and this time it's to Cabrillo College with permaculture director Ken Foster. And we'll also be having a very engaging interview with David Raphael, who is the director of the San Francisco Medical Research Foundation. So good stuff coming.
Yes, absolutely. In the third episode, we're going to be visiting new native farms in Freedom, California. The episode is all about sprouts.
Please join us. We'd love to have you back.
Yes, absolutely. And feast on these beautiful greens that you can find in your garden and at the local farmers market.